All right, dude, I got to tell you something I came across the other day that is absolutely insane. It totally floored me. I can't believe this is actual news, but it seems pretty legit from what I can tell. So, Dana White, who you probably know that name, he is the owner of UFC and has been around in mixed martial arts and professional sporting leagues for a long time and stuff. Well, I read this thing the other day. He just announced they're going to start a professional slap fighting league. It's called... I mean, can you believe this is real? Like, I mean, we've seen How I Met Your Mother, where they just had slap bets and stuff like that. That was really, really good. But they're literally going to make a league out of this. It's called Dana White's Power Slap League. And somehow they are getting this shit actually regulated. I don't know how you can regulate it, because all I can see is potential, like, brain trauma that's going to happen. But it's...
Well, hang on. Have you never seen this?
No.
Have you literally never...
like professional stuff?
Oh, no. So this is interesting. Like, I mean, have you ever watched a slap boxing?
Oh, yeah.
Thing?
Oh, no. I've seen, like, stuff on the internet.
Gotcha. This is the way I kind of imagine, and I had no idea that you were going to bring this up today, but this is very interesting. So the way I imagine this is like how all of our professional sports got started, which is, there was these little tiny pockets and places, and then somebody's like, oh, I can make money on this. And so, like, this is what's funny to me is, like, you're absolutely right. It's like every time I see one of these, I'm like, that's just brain damage 100%.
Yeah.
Because we're not talking gloves. And, for those of you who don't know, boxing gloves, the whole point of boxing gloves is to pad the blow.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Right.
You still get the holy hell beat out of you. There's still lots of brain damage, but it's to pad the blow. And so, yeah, these guys are just like wailing at each other. And so what I find extremely impressive and yet scary, I guess, out of this is that they're like, you know what we can make money with? We can turn this into something that a lot of people watch rather than just and so somebody is watching the numbers, man, and they have determined that there's enough people watching these underground videos of and these look pretty professional for what it is, but it's also two dudes. I mean, there are regulations, and you can tell there's a referee, there's a whole thing, but I'm like, there's enough people watching this. I just thought that, like, this is something that, that's amazing.
All I can think, it's a league, and it's going to be considered, I guess, kind of a sport. And what is it? Is it all offense? Because you don't play any defense. You don't block the slap, do you? Like,
no, your face, you're just standing there trying to look tough, and then you look immediately stupid. Like, that's the thing that, like, boxing, you can take a punch and look tough after, right?
Yeah.
Or you can defend it. But I've never seen somebody like, there's always that split second, even the ones that like take it and like come back and look tough. There's always that split second where you look like a complete idiot because you just got slapped. And anyways, I guess we'll have to watch and see where it goes. So
oh my
that
gosh.
should be fun.
I mean, it's absolutely insane. And the obvious transition here is I was like, well, I mean, thank God that I have, a job that doesn't require me just standing there getting slapped by someone, right? It's so nice that we have the ability in our lives to be able to kind of choose what we want to do. But I got to tell you right now, I don't want to choose to get slapped in the face professionally. I'd rather just do that, just in the comfort of my own home, if that's okay.
No, I mean, every so often in the YouTube comments, we get slapped a little bit, but that's, it's not nearly that. So yeah, it's a good gig we have, which takes us into our topic today, which is...
Yeah, we're going to talk about, how do we get here? How do we live a life of freedom? And honestly, I think it's important to kind of talk about the fact that we didn't really follow a guide to get here. We just kind of made our own path, right? We developed something for ourselves, and the guide to get here really wasn't following a guide at all. So I think it's going to be a really cool conversation.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the fun thing is, getting here was sort of... ass backwards for us probably, but there definitely is a way to do it if you sort of see the pattern in some of the things that we're going to talk about as we get into this. So let's dive in. Let's do it.
All right, man, we've obviously talked about this before, and there's a reason that it's such a big subject, and there's a reason I'd like to kind of dig deeper too, because I think it's really incredibly interesting how we got here, how we got to this serial progress seeker lifestyle, right? Obviously, we feel it's important enough that we're doing everything in our power. We're recording a damn podcast as we speak. You know, we're doing everything in our power though to help other people kind of come along for the ride, right? And making sure that we're all doing everything that we can to move into this life of freedom with building a 7-figure business that you literally operate from a backpack. That's the whole basis of everything that we're doing. So I'd love to, let's just start with the bare bones, man. So you're sitting at a bar, you're having a conversation kind of like we're having right now. Someone talks to you about what you do for a living. I'd love to know, I mean, how much of that conversation revolves around that one word and that one thought of freedom? I'd love to know about that.
When I'm in a bar and somebody asks me, because I get this a lot actually when I go out, because a lot of people locally, especially that know me, do follow what we do online. And so, hey, to all of you out there that are watching, and we appreciate you guys watching and listening. But, you know, the thing that I kind of go with, and the easiest answer is at this point is sort of the Justin Timberlake as he's playing, you know, the guy who founded Napster.
Yep.
You know, in that movie, in that movie that, like, at this point I watch it and I'm like, but in that movie, you know, he just says he's an entrepreneur. And I have found the easiest answer to that question at this point is that, and what I have found from that is anybody that's really interested, that's really like trying to, like, you know, get there themselves, always digs deeper.
Of course.
The other people, you know, they sort of, you know, move on and whatever. Oh, that's interesting. Like what? Oh, software. I mean, like, you know, you can go a couple different ways. I have an agency, but like the people that really are trying to like change their lives always dig deeper, and they're always like hungry for more knowledge. And so when I'm out and I have somebody that's like actually digging into that, I always start with the math. And the math is the first thing that I really got into, because I'm not incredibly organized. I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the world. But I do focus on certain things that I think put me in a place to actually see the pieces on the board. And anytime we're getting into a business, if I don't understand the math behind it, at least at a 10,000 foot level, it's probably not a good business to get into. I'm actually looking to get into another business right now. And that's the thing. I don't quite understand the math on the board yet. And so I'm not 100% in on that business yet.
Sure.
But that's the thing. For me, I sat down at the time, and this is, you know, 10, 12 years ago at this point. And I sit down and I looked at my life and what I was making and what my wife was making. And so it was our combined income. And, you know, I realized that to live and to be happy, it wasn't, you know, anything that was like we had to make $1 million a year. Okay. So that was good. Like, you know, to get to something that we were very, very happy people didn't require that. Most people out there, if you really do the math on what makes you happy, just at a core level, not like, oh, I would love to have this, but at a core level, what makes you happy? And like, you know, life's pretty decent. If you actually break down the math of that, and I suggest everybody does that, it's not bad. And then you can sit down and you can break down, okay, well, what if we had a personal chef? What if we had this? What if we had all these little extra things that might make our lives a little bit better? Not needed, but a little better. And you do the math on that. And actually go look up the cost of these things. It's incredibly important. And then like do the math of what the difference is between the two. So the first thing is it's really hard to build a business when you have other obligations. So for me, the first part about getting into this life that was free was to make what I was making at the other gig and decently happy. Make what my wife was making sure that our business, whatever we built, the two of us, it was making up the income for the other stuff. So I literally took the income that we were making, broke it down into, okay, 5 days out of the week, what do I have to make to reach a certain level? And the number that I actually came out at 5 days a week was $500, or it was like $400 a day, something like that. I'm pretty sure it was $400 a day. So I had it down to $400 a day. I did the math on that. And if I was making $400 a day, 5 days a week, that got us pretty close. Now, if you're sitting there doing the math at home, you're like, that's not too terribly bad. But it was $400 a day.
Yeah.
And I'm probably rounded it up to 500, but like $400 a day, that's what the business had to generate on average per day for me to get there. And so that became the goal. And so what I had to do from there is I was like, well, and I think a lot of people probably fall into this, is like, I don't exactly know what I want to do. I have these skills, but I don't know how I'm going to maybe turn that into a product. But the math behind it actually aimed me in this, well, I've got to have a product that costs this much, and I've got to sell this many of them a day.
Right.
That was it. And so even if you're kind of lost as to what you can do or what a product could be, I think a lot of times we get into businesses because we're kind of passionate about the topic, but we leave out the math. And the math is the first part. If the math doesn't equal what you want out of your life, like keeping your happiness or getting to that next level, then it's probably not a business that you need to go in. And a lot of people, we hear about businesses closing down every year. And I think a lot of that is because people mismatch those things and they leave their business because they want to go back to the life that they had before, where they were doing whatever they were before, because they need that level of income to have that baseline happiness. And so I think that's the keys before you go do anything. Number one is learning the skills to grow this business going to be something that fulfills me. That's got to be there. That's got to be there. But number two, does the math of this business and what I could profit from this business, replace my current income, or does it add on to the income that I have? And that's the thing. It's just really doing budgeting, as boring as this sounds. Your dream life is all about doing budgeting of both the time and money required for whatever is going to bring in income. And look, so how much money does it take to power your normal life, like the one that you're decently happy with right now, your baseline? How much money does it require to power sort of your dream life if you had everything that you wanted? What's the difference between those two? Most people have no clue. They've never actually done that math. And then number three, I think it's what are the hours required to do, that? For my business, Serial Progress Seeker, it really became, I can't do Serial Progress Seeker at the level that I want to do it and the level I think I need to do it if I have another gig. And so, I had to start really putting that math together. And when I started to put that math together the right way, that's when we really started to understand that this is a business that we can do. This is a business that can get us to where we want to go, but we have to have this amount of time and we have to make this much money every day. What are the products that we're going to sell? What's the value that we're going to exchange for that money? And then is there an audience for it? And that sort of takes us into the next stuff.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's obviously you're talking about just establishing a financial freedom, but for every single person that's out there, that level, that benchmark is going to be different, right? So obviously It's all about taking the time to kind of establish what that benchmark is for yourself. And then that kind of leads you into other avenues of freedom, right? You start with a financial aspect and then you get to kind of dive into, well, now I've got more free time to hang out with my family, or I've got more free time to travel and do some of the things that I really want to do. So when you're having these conversations with people, I'm sure people ask all the time, but how the hell did you get here? So when someone says, how did you attain your current level of freedom, whether that's financially or like a personal freedom, what do you tell people when you tell them that you got here? Like, what's the story there?
So I tested the waters. I had a brick and mortar business. I was a chiropractor. So I had an actual building. I had actual bills that had to be paid every month, whether anybody came through the door or not. Like, I really had this business that cost something. And if you didn't watch it, it would eat you alive. And so, I had this thing that I was doing, and to power it, I had to get really good at getting people to come through the front door. I had to, even if you weren't coming through the front door, I had to get really good at making people understand that I was trustworthy enough that they could send other people through the front door and recommend me. And so there was a level of marketing and sales that I had to master very quickly to stay afloat. And so I became sort of a nut of, pulling in all these things that helped my business grow. And as I was doing it, some worked, some didn't. But the ones that actually did work, as we were taking an assessment of these things, we started doing more of. And so we started to grow. Now, when you get to that point and you're having success, you have other people that start noticing you're having success and they want to know what you're doing. And so they come to you for advice. And somewhere along the way, I, started helping people and charging them money for my time. And it was really my first agency. The first business that I actually had outside of the chiropractic office, as I was actually operating the chiropractic offices, I worked with a real estate agent. And the real estate agent, would have listings for houses. And the standard thing is you would have a bunch of pictures that would go with this particular property. And what we would do is I sold them, we'll do this many videos per month. We'll take those pictures and we'll turn them into a video that just looks a lot cooler to help you stand out. So they would send us the listings. We would take the pictures. We would put them into a piece of software. And I was just leveraging a piece of software that did this, but I put them in the software. It would spit out a video and we would send them back to the agent and they paid us a monthly rate for that. And so that was my first service. There was a service called Animoto. I'm pretty sure is what it was called. And we would literally take the real estate pictures of the house, put it in this. We would send it back to the agent and they would use it. It worked for both of us. They were standing out in their market. We were getting paid monthly to do that. And that worked. And so everybody won in that scenario. What was really interesting though is as I took on more clients, I took on like a law firm, I took on a couple of restaurants that we were helping out. As I took on more clients, my time shrunk because at the same time my other business was getting busier and busier. And because I was actually working in that business, not just an owner of that business, I had to actually put in the work in that business. So my time got less and less. And so I still had this air about me that I knew what I was doing from a marketing perspective because I did. But even as people were asking me for more help and they wanted to pay me, I didn't have time. And so that was a problem that I had to solve. And I started looking around and, the obvious thing hit me. I was like, well, if you could bottle up what's in your brain into something that people could consume, but it didn't take your time after you initially built it, that would be something that would probably have value for people. And so that's what I did. I started taking this thing like the Animoto videos that we would do for the real estate agent, some of the website stuff we were doing for the law firm, some of the extra little promotions that we were doing for the restaurant that we did. And I started bottling these things up and I would put them into, at the time, it was like 10 to 20 page PDFs. That was it. And what I would do to put these together is this is old school, but I had like Microsoft Word. I would open up Microsoft Word and I would write, kind of the step by step. And it was like a 5-chapter thing. And we're talking 5 chapters and 10 to 20 pages, right? And I would go through the step by step of what the method was that we were actually doing. And at the end, I would mess with the margins of the front page and the last page. And we would, we'd make it look kind of like a comic book. So we would have a cover, that we'd throw in there. And typically it was just some image that I found online. I'd buy the rights to, I'd throw it in, I'd throw something over the top of it with Photoshop. And I was terrible with Photoshop, but we would put together not only something that taught you how to do something, but it was fun because it did feel like a comic book. And I could, like I said, I'll pull up some examples of these that we could post somewhere that people will get a kick out of looking at these. And this is from the very beginning of like my career doing this, but people would buy this stuff, from us at a very low level to start, and they would learn something and they would have a fun time doing it. And so not only did we build a brand as people that, taught really good things and unique ideas in the marketing world that I was just doing in my business to stand out, but it was fun because of the way we actually carried it out. And that was sort of the lesson for me is anything that I learned in the chiropractic office or helping any of my clients was also something that I could bottle up into information that people would also get value if they bought, down the road. Now, what ended up happening with me is I started to realize that there were pockets of people on the internet that would congregate and they were interested in this. And way back when I started, it was forums. So like these actual forums, you'd type a comment, post it, and then it was like the static thing. It wasn't like updated automatically.
Does it kind of make you feel like a dinosaur right now?
Oh, 100%. If you don't know what a forum is, back in the early 2000s, this was how we communicated. It was the equivalent of a Facebook group back then, and even now, Facebook groups are starting to feel a little bit passé. But that's the easiest thing that I can relate it to. It was like a very, very focused Facebook group, and it was easier to find things probably than in a Facebook group is. And so there were these forums, and these people would congregate, and they were interested in this stuff. And so what I figured out is there's these places where these people that are like really interested in this stuff that I'm already creating live. The problem is there was extra requirements to be able to put this stuff up for sale. There was actually places in these forums to sell this kind of thing if you did it, because there was tons of people that were interested in it, and the forum would take, I think at the time I had to pay $20 to post in this particular part of the forum. So that's how they made their money. $20 every time somebody posted a thread. And what would end up happening is you'd put this up, you'd put a little PayPal link in it, and somebody would buy from you. And as more people post in the forum, yours would get pushed down farther and farther and farther. Okay. So if you wanted to bump it to the top, you pay another $20 and it would bump it to the top of the forum. And you could do that every so often. Somewhere along the way, somebody figured out how big this was getting, and they built a sales platform that you could build your own buy button, and it would integrate with PayPal at the time. And the kind of the caveat to this is other people could promote your thing and they could make a percentage of it. So you could tell the system how much these other people would make, and they could make a percentage of it. Also, if you had like an email autoresponder, we're really big on building lists here. Mm-hmm. This was a big piece of it for me. You could integrate it with that, and it would automatically put all your buyers onto that list. And so instead of having to go to your PayPal, see all the email addresses that people had bought from, and then manually put them in somewhere, this would do all those things for you automatically. And so the first couple times I posted in the forum, it was literally just a PayPal link. And that's how we did it. But then this system came along and it made it a little easier. But I think the really interesting thing that I had to learn, and this was huge for me, this changed my life. And I don't talk about it a lot, but I had to learn copywriting. And I had to learn how to write in a very precise, persuasive way that would explain to people kind of what I had, why it was something that they would need, and to get it, this is what you need to do next. And so it's very simple on its face, but some of the subtleties to how that kind of works, there's a lot to it. And so I had to learn how to put this together. Not only did I have to learn how to actually write a certain way, but then I had to learn how to make it look good on a page. Yeah. But then you had to learn how to make it look good on a page in this particular forum. So there's all these hoops that I had to jump through in the beginning. But what it actually ended up doing is over time, I started getting, more popular in this forum. People would see my name and be like, oh yeah, I like his stuff. He's the one that kind of does the cool marketing tricks, but he's kind of a comic book-esque kind of feel. So there was a style to what we did. And then the affiliate program that I was talking about came along with the guy that built the tool. Mm-hmm. Shout out to my buddy Mike Lance. Changed my life with how that worked, and I didn't even realize what was going on. But we started getting affiliates. People were like, "Oh, cool! This Adkins guy does some cool stuff. I can probably sell this." So there was aspiring entrepreneurs that like, I don't even have to create anything. I can just promote it to the people that already follow me and make money. Cool. So they would promote our stuff, and every time somebody promoted our stuff, we kept building our list. So here I am. I am in the chiropractic office, and I go to work at like 8:00, and I get off at 6:00. I hang out with my family a couple hours. During the night, I take some of the stuff that we were doing in my chiropractic office or for my local clients at the time. Didn't know I had an agency, but I did. And I would package it up into these PDFs, get those ready. Then I would write a sales letter for the forum. Then I would get, kind of everything connected. And then I would launch it out, and we would pick up affiliates. They would promote it. And there was times when, I'd go home on my lunch break and I'd drive home. We'd click the launch button while I was home at lunch. I would drive the 10 minutes back to my office. And within that time, I'd have 100 people that had bought something from me.
Wow.
And it certainly didn't start off that way, but like, that's kind of the level of what started to happen. Is not only did we deliver good stuff, but we started building this list. And every time we built the list, because not only did I build a list of past customers, but I also built a list of all the past people that had promoted my product. So every time we put out a new product, not only would I let my past customers know, but I'd let all these people, these affiliates know, hey, we got something coming and you can probably make money from it. And so we were doing sort of email marketing to both of them. And the cumulative effect is you would walk out of a sale and you'd have another 2,000-3,000 buyers of a product that you had. And all of these people were super nerdy about the same thing that you were nerdy about. That's where it all really started for me, is that was the business that was growing as I was in the chiropractic office. And that's the business that eventually started to pull me away. Now, I will say this, it got a lot more evolved, and it actually got a lot easier in terms of you didn't have to deal with this forum anymore. But it all started because I found this little pocket of people on the internet that were interested in something. I put a product in front of them, and every time somebody bought the product, we built our list. And so I wasn't dependent on that forum forever, because I pulled everybody that was into my stuff off of that forum and communicated with my list. And really, of all the breaks that I had, of all the money that I spent to promote what I was doing, the most important part for me was that every time I gained a customer, I put them into a place to where I could communicate with them without having to pay for that customer, to get in front of that customer again. And if I really can get down to what got me to backpack lifestyle, it was that I was always extremely focused on building that list and being able to communicate with my customers outside of the advertising that I did the first time. So.
Man, how cool is that to think about? I don't know. I'm sure you probably don't take a lot of time to think about how things got started, and it's cool to, because I obviously, I've known you forever, but I was on the outside looking in and didn't fully understand. So looking back now and knowing how it all started is really, really interesting to me. But I think you would probably agree with this, that obviously I don't think we, and you definitely have not followed what we would consider a quote unquote traditional path for your career or your livelihood, and kind of the basis of what we're talking about is not really following a guide, because you haven't really. You kind of set your own guide, but at the same time, I bet you'd be willing to say, and you just mentioned a buddy of yours, so I'd love to dig more into that. So I'm sure there's probably been some guiding lights along the way. So, what have been those guiding lights for you as far as, people or things you've heard or things you've been a part of? Like what's kind of guided this process and this path for you?
Well, I think that the thing you have to realize is there's always people that are wanting to do certain things. There's always people that want to make more money out there. There's always people that want to lose weight. There's always people that want to improve their appearance. There's always people that want to have deeper relationships. Like there's like this core human element of what we do. And the idea is you take those very big core human things and you niche them down. And that's it. So like, it's not just about, okay, all these people want to make more money. Well, I want to make more money doing what I'm passionate about. So I want to make more money in my chiropractic office, for instance. Like that was something that, I was big. So I would actively look for other chiropractors or people that worked in the chiropractic industry that were teaching specifically how to make more money in that spot. Okay. So that's cool, right? But then you can niche down even further from there and you can say, how do you make more money in your chiropractic office? How do you get more patients through the door in your chiropractic office if you're offering this specific technique? And so that was something that if you offered that technique, it seemed like that was more for you than all this other stuff that was out there. Mm-hmm. And the thing is you have to, no matter what you do, every one of us has some level of expertise that is valuable. And where we screw ourselves is we really think, well, there's all these other people that are so much more experienced in this than I am. But you still got to understand, maybe there's this group of people above you, but then there's this huge group of people below you that doesn't have the experience you have. The idea is to find that little niche, right? Find that niche, big things, lose weight, be more attractive, play a musical instrument, make money. And there's all these things that are like very big things that tons of people want, but then you can really niche it down. I like music because it is like the perfect example. You're like, okay, well, I want to be a better musician. I want to be able to play any song that I hear on the radio. Okay. I want to be able to play any song that I hear on the radio, on the guitar or the piano or the flute. And like, so then you're niching down further, but then you can be like, hey, I want to play rock music that I hear on the radio on the guitar. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And then you really start to get into like very specific pockets of folks. The more specific you get, the easier it is to communicate with people. Most people don't do this because they don't want to not to appeal to people. And they think that's what makes them more money. But you actually make more money the more niche down you are. And so where a lot of the stuff that I was doing back in 2010, 2011 to get started doesn't exactly work the same way now. It's the same principle. It's actually easier to find these folks because of Facebook groups, things like that. TikTok, these pockets of audiences are literally divided now by hashtags and Facebook groups. Yep. And so you can go find these pockets of people just by doing a search on your, whatever social network, and you start putting out a little bit of content out on a subject that's really different because it's super niche. And that's really, everybody's like, oh, be different, do something different. Well, what does that mean? Yep. It's just niche down so far to where you're like, am I too specific? And that's the idea. If you can do that, but then you can teach that group something, you're on your way. And I would say anybody out there, take something that you're kind of good at that you think some people could be into, put together a quick little video that you hide, put together a little PDF that you can build, using Canva or, any set of tools out there. Put together something that literally teaches somebody something that you've actually gotten good at and put it up for sale for like $9. But just put it up for sale in a way that every time somebody buys, you get their email address or you get their phone number so that you can market to them. And that's really the key is, for us, we use tools like Customer Engine for our list building side, but we use tools like Samcart is a tool that we use for all of our charges. So Samcart builds order pages for us, and it integrates with things like Stripe and PayPal so people can actually pay us. But the cool part about that is every time somebody buys through Samcart, we put them on one of our customer engine lists so that we can send them things out later. In the last 2 weeks, I put 100 new people on an SMS list. I actually have their phone number that I can send them a message anytime I want. And these were just people that were buying products from us, just randomly coming in, buying products from us. That's 100 new people on a list that the next time I want to send out a promotion, it's not even just an email. I can send a text directly to their phone and be like, hey, we got something new. Go check it out. And when you start to see the power of that you've got that list, and that list was just somebody bought something for $9. I have people that have bought, $2, $3, $4, $5,000 things from me, and they started off as a buyer of something that was $9. And that's the thing that really will flip your lid. That I should probably talk about next is a lot of times we make the mistake of thinking that, if we charge little, we can't charge more down the road. And that was the next big revelation for me in this journey. That happened to me probably 2-3 months into, my whole thing. And I learned that these customers that came through the door on something that was $9 are more than willing to spend thousands of dollars with me. And that was probably one of the scariest moments of my career, but it was also one of the more fascinating. So if you want to hear about that, I can definitely walk you through it.
Yeah. Was it like a specific instance, or was it like a circle of events? What took place?
It was funny. I sold this product, and it was teaching how to do something on Facebook.
Okay.
There was nothing over the top of it, but it was teaching some Facebook stuff, some Facebook marketing stuff. And it wasn't even, I don't think it was overly special other than the fact that the branding was good. It was this evil magician thing, and something about the word evil got in people's heads, and they either liked it. I got lots of complaints. How dare you? It was,
oh, you're a bad guy. Jeez.
Yeah. Anyways, so we sold this thing, and all it was just teaching some cool little tricks that you could pull off on Facebook on the time. Probably none of them work now, but at the time it was really, really cool to some of the stuff you could do. And I think it was like 5 tips. Anyways, everybody that got in, we gave them free access to a weekly call. And at the time I was just getting into this thing where video and being on video and talking to people. And every week on a Tuesday night, I think it was like Tuesday night at like 9:00. After the reason it was 9:00 on a Tuesday night is because I worked at the chiropractic office all day. But I would get online, and there's probably 200-300 people that would get on a call with me, and we weren't pitching anything. We were just talking to people about marketing and walking people through stuff, and you got access to this, indefinite access to this, just because you bought this $9 product. I get 3 weeks in to this, and I'm like, you know what? Let's see what can happen. And I'm like, I'm going to offer a $2,000 package to teach people how to do this one specific thing if they're interested. And I'm going to pitch this to all these people. If they don't want it, cool. They can keep coming to this call every week, and we'll keep doing it. But I'm gonna offer this. So I got on, and literally I was just like, I'm doing this just because who knows what's happening, and let's see if it works. And it was a terrible webinar. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. Now I feel like I've done so many of these sales webinars that I know how to put together a product and put it in front of an audience and, kind of do what we need to do. But no such thing at the time. And I walked off of that call, and 7 people took me up on a $2,000 product.
Wow.
And in the span of 2 or 3 hours, I had $14,000 sitting in a bank account that wasn't there 2-3 hours before. And that's when it really started to hit me that it's all about bringing the lead through the door the first time. And if you can bring the lead through the door with a payment rather than giving something away for free, that's a lot more valuable. And so that was really one of the big things that hit me early on, is do anything you can to deliver value to people in that first purchase. And they will see the value, or at least a percentage of them will see the value of a larger purchase from you. And over the years, that was the thing. It's we really stopped with the $9 products in terms of that was what we did every time. We still do that from time to time as a lead gen, though. And it's just interesting to see the number one thing that all businesses have trouble with is getting a customer the first time. And so anything that you can do to get a customer the first time, is helpful in a lot of businesses. Now you have to be sort of careful about that because you can bring the wrong kind of customer in too. But I think it's incredibly valuable when you think about it from a, you know what, I just want to make a living teaching people how to make tables. I love making tables. Tables are my thing, and I feel like I'm pretty good at making tables. I wonder if there's anybody else that would be out there that would love to make a table like what I make. The answer is absolutely yes, there are. And people will pay you for those kinds of things. And it's just a matter of like the first time you put together one of your table plans, maybe sell it for $9. Somebody's gonna buy it for $9 because they're like, you know what? I bet this $9 thing is probably a lot better than the free thing that's on YouTube because I pay for it and it's value. You know, there's value to it. There's a whole audience that won't, but there's a whole audience that absolutely will. That's the way they think, and so they'll buy. But then, you know, once you have that list of people, maybe you've got a more elaborate table or you've got something that would help them even more. And that's where you start to get into this thing of, oh, I've got this actual business. And, you know, I'm going to go from tables to chairs now. I wonder if this group is into chairs too. Of course, they're going to be into chairs too. So that's really how it is. It just starts off with this very basic need of, hey, I needed this. I learned how to do it. I put in the work. I bet there's other people out there that want to know how to do this too. So while I'm over here doing this thing, why don't I package this information up? And while I'm doing it, why don't I build a list of everybody that buys it from me too?
Yeah, I tell you, and something that you just said really struck for me because, I mean, it sounds to me like obviously to get that person from that $9 purchase to the $2,000 level, it kind of just took you going, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to try this, you know? And like, I think there's probably a certain level of confidence that has to come to get to that level mentally. But once you get there, man, I mean, there's not a whole lot of limit to what you can do. And so that kind of transitions into something else I wanted to ask you, because you and I are generally pretty positive guys. So we paint with pretty positive brushes for the most part, but there's no way that we get here to where we are without some struggles along the way. So tell me a little bit about, you know, have you seen, especially when you were, think about the path to get to this spot of freedom that you're in right now. Talk about some of the struggles along the way, because I know there's had to be some to maintain this lifestyle. It's not something that you can just kind of, you know, set it and forget it. There's nothing about your world that's just a set it and forget it. It's a constant kind of tinkering and trying new things and testing new things and new technologies and stuff like that. So what kind of struggles have you seen along the way that have kind of come in and thrown roadblocks for you, and have you kind of maintained this lifestyle through those?
Well, I think a lot of people think because we have this really successful company now that I had some sort of built-in advantage in terms of maybe I knew somebody, or now, I mean, like I have nobody in my life that was this person before. Like my dad's a sales guy at a radio station, so he had sales. I did have that around me, but like there was nothing like this. My mom's a teacher, so like what did I end up doing? I'm an online teacher who sells courses, you know, or sells software. So yes, I did have that background, but I didn't have anybody that was really like anything really good at business or like how to run a business, how to manage staff. And you know, I will say this: the amount of money that I have put into this business that I probably could have pocketed to learn my mistakes, you know? And I think that's the thing is like, you know, how to run a staff, how to hire, all things that I was extremely poor at in the beginning. I think I'm a kind person, so that probably kept a lot of people around, but like really, I made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes were incredibly expensive. And, you know, I think that there are times when, yeah, you look up and you're like, oh man, would I be happier if I just had a job? I don't think I ever think that, but I think it's easy for a lot of people to.
Yeah.
What I think that sort of hits you along the way is, are you willing to look at everything you do as education? Meaning, if I can just survive this thing that I'm up against right now, and I get to the other side of it, am I ever going to make that mistake again? And that's the thing. It's like I have made so many mistakes that somebody would look at my business and be like, this guy's an idiot. Like, this guy is an absolute, like, he's a moron. Like, he's not that smart. You know, I can sell, but that just because I can sell and make a lot of money doesn't mean that I know all the other pieces to running a business. And so kind of the mindset that I adopted along the way was, God, I've made a lot of mistakes, and man, wouldn't it be great if I hadn't made that mistake or hired that person or not hired this other person, or, I had not blown this money on this thing that nothing came from. But, my mindset really has always been, if I can just survive this next challenge that's up in front of me, I'm going to be able to take that knowledge into this next thing that I do, and I'm going to be that much more solid from it. And so it's always for 10 years now, it's been this thing of, this business is about reinvesting in myself and this knowledge. And, the reason that I can get and talk about this podcast the way that we do, just sort of on the fly, is literally there's 10,000 hours times 3 that I have put into this. It's ridiculous the amount of time that I have put into this. But if I was the kind of person, or I allowed myself to be, because I think I was this kind of person maybe 10 years ago, if I was the kind of person that looked at every failure as something that was like indicative of who I am, I'd be done. I mean, I could not withstand the amount of things, the failures that I have put on the scoreboard in this business if I thought that way.
Yeah.
But I've developed the mindset of, a failure is something that you stick in your banks that the next time you come around really prepares you to hit a home run. And I really love the Groundhog Day sort of vibe of this.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that Phil must have gone through and failed and be like, oh God, well, I got to get to the next day. And I got to get to the next day. But like over time, you start to, it was very manipulative in his case for a while. But the idea is, he started just building up these banks of things and building up skills that turned him into a more rounded human being, so that when it got to the thing that actually counted, there he was ready, and it counted for something. And I think that's the key, is in business and in life. If you're somebody that carries baggage with you, it's tough. I am very much a human being that is like, we get one shot. And in 100 years, nobody's going to remember my name. And I do believe that. I mean, like most companies that were monsters 100 years ago, we don't, nobody's going to know them in 15 years from now. I mean, even with great history. And so I fully believe that we get one shot at this. You've got to grow the entire way through. And a lot of the money that you spend is much better spent on growing you and growing the next generation of entrepreneurs, the next generation, our kids, is better spent there in learning rather than hoarding and sticking back. And so I think that's the thing, is like, I'm always very open, and this is terrible business advice, kids, but I'm always very open to spending money to learn something myself, whether hiring someone to teach me that or actually making the mistake. And listen, here's the cool part. Some of those things that could have been mistakes turned into something that completely changed the course of our company for the best. And so, it's about taking risk. And so that's the mindset that I have, is like, as an entrepreneur, you have a set of things that you're good at. People will always pay you for those things if you go looking for the audience, but you're always putting your chips on the table. You're always gambling. If you are doing it the right way, you're gambling in ways where you have a slight advantage, but you're always gambling. And I think that that's the mindset. As long as you keep that mindset, now I have to remind myself of those mindsets every so often so I don't slip back into a place. But as long as you keep those mindsets, it's hard to be down for too long, because you wake up and you realize, let's say that this went completely belly up. Could we build it back? Yeah, we could. And I think that's the fun part for me, is like, there was definitely a time in the first 2 or 3 years when I was building this business that I thought, oh my gosh, I have to protect everything, and everything's so, and obviously now I've got people that work for me. I've got to protect them, and that's a responsibility. But I'm always of the mindset that we are out there doing things that are worth the risk. What the value we bring out into the world is worth the risk that we put into what we're doing. And so at the end of the day, did we actually add something, or did we play it so safe that we never did anything? And I think that the first part is true. And if you keep living that way, not only, and call me crazy, not only will you do big things in the world, not only will you be ready for the big chances when they come, the waves, so that you can ride them, but you'll have people that will follow you into battle too, because they want to live their life that way. They believe in what you're doing and they like that adventure. And I think that that's the thing, is the negative is, it's negative all the time. There's negativity all around you. But when you have a mindset of every negative thing gets you ready for this big thing that's coming, then you start to understand that all these experiences stack into something that puts armor around you. And that armor is very, very valuable when the actual moments arrive. And so I don't know if it's tricking yourself into this, Marshall, if this is real or if I've just tricked myself into this mindset, but so far it's served me pretty well.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, man, if you trick yourself, you've already tricked me in the last 5 minutes of talking about it. Because I mean, you kind of talk like somebody who's literally just playing with house money. And isn't that kind of the feeling? That's what we want, right? That's when we talk about freedom. It's about financial freedom. It's about the freedom of working from home and being able to do things on the fly and with a backpack. But it's about just living loosely and taking chances and, being willing to fall down and get back up. And, it's there's a whole element of that. And I know that there's obviously a lot of uncertainty along the way. There's a lot of unsureness that has to show itself when you're trying to get to this spot. But, and I'd love to, maybe we kind of end on this note because I think it's a great spot to end. But what would you say to somebody who's, intimidated about getting on that road, who's trying to get to that life of freedom and doesn't really have a guide to follow? What kind of advice you got for them?
I think that there's never going to be a moment, no matter how much money you have, if you are an actual human that likes to live, there's never going to be a moment where you have enough money in your bank account. There's never going to be enough a day when you are satisfied with what's in your account. Now that you win the lottery, you're going to maybe be happy for a few months, and then what are you living for? So the whole ball game is this like we are designed to seek growth. We're designed to seek progress. Like that is the whole thing. When that goes away, we're done. Like our purpose is no more. And so I think the thing is if you're afraid, you just got to be like, okay, I got one shot at this. It can be taken away from me at any point. There's no day that's promised. I literally fell down the stairs yesterday and I thought, well, this is it. I was walking down. I had stuff in my hands. My dog is on the stairs behind me, like just stops and freezes. And he's like, well, that's it. I'm not getting fed anymore. He's dead. I'm going to have to eat him. And then it's over for me too. And no, my family would have come home and it would have been terrible, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Morbid. I think the thing that keeps me going and the thing that is very, very powerful for anybody out there is I have a very morbid view on the world that gives me a level of positivity. And it's absolutely this. If nothing really matters, if in 100 years, nothing that we do matters, then everything we do right now matters. And so if you're like sitting there right now and being like, oh, what's the point? This is scary. I could lose what I have. Well, you know what? What happens if you don't go for it? If you are 80 years old and you thought, I just played it safe, you can crash and build back. You could absolutely crash and build back. It's not as hard as everybody thinks. But the ball game is this: at the end of your life, did you try? Did you put the chips on the table every so often? Did you try? Did you take care of people? And I think that's the thing is like when I really think about my life, I want to have mattered in this short little 100-year window. If I don't matter past that, well, welcome to the fucking club because most people don't. That's okay. But during this window, did I matter to people? Did I feel like I left it all out on the field? And I think that's the thing. It's like when you're thinking about this big decision and you're scared and you don't know what value you can bring, go look for it. Go seek it. Go after and really try to find what you can do and then do it the best you can. You're going to look like an idiot at first. Most people aren't going to get what you're doing at first. Let me show you, as I said, some of these early PDFs that I put out. Let me show you some of the first videos that I put out. They were horrible. I hope 5 years from now, I come back to this podcast and I think, what were you guys doing? Like, man, you didn't have it figured out. But that's the ball game. You got to be okay with looking like an idiot and not being as with it, but learning along the way. And here's the cool part about this. And this is, I think, the best note to end on. Most people in the world, even if they realize you don't have it quite figured out yet, they will get behind you just because of the effort. That's it. Like that is the number one secret that I realized a long time ago. If people see you trying and people see you passionately going after these things, they will fall behind you or they will reach down from where they are and help lift you up because they like the effort. And when you realize that most of this game is people getting behind you or people pulling you up from where they already are because of your effort, everything gets easier and the confidence in what you're doing does go up because you realize you can screw up so much. I'm pointing to myself for the listeners at home. You can't see this on the camera. You can screw up so much and still come out with something that means something to people, and prep yourself for the next big thing that's coming at every stage of your life. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me positive. If you're looking and you're starting and you're like, well, gosh, I feel so behind and what can I really offer? Just start really thinking about what you're passionate about, what you could teach people, and understand that even if there's people out there that are doing it better than what you think you can do, there's a lot of people that would love your opinion on it. And that gets you there.